Hello, I'm Jack Coran, and welcome to the Game Day U finale. I'm joined by Micah Buchanan, Ben Diacu, and Aiden Tyler. We will be going over the regular season, the Cheez-It Bowl game, and a foundational first season for Brent Venables. While OU fans expected more, there was a lot of change within the program, and that reflected in the 6-6 record. This season was a foundation-building year, and it was an overall culture shock for both the coaches and players. Aiden, what are your thoughts on how this season turned out?
I think clearly this was a disappointing season. They went 6-6. They're worse since 1998 when they went 5-6 under John Blake. Jeff Lebby has some questionable play calling throughout the season, which hindered the offensive success at times. Defensive struggles have continued from the previous years, but we'll touch on that one later. And I think obviously there's lots of room for improvement, and it should be a better season next year, and it really is only up from here. Ben, what about you?
I came into this season with big expectations, but I underestimated the damage that Lincoln Riley did when he left. The transfers, the defensive starters lost to the draft, and of course, Caleb Williams, the Heisman favorite, just left massive holes on this roster. But achieving bowl eligibility could end up paying dividends for this program with that just one extra game in Orlando against Florida State.
The season wasn't great. Like Ben said, it could have been so much worse. Obviously, this wasn't the season everyone was hoping for coming in, and it was obviously a rebuilding year. The defense was amazing at some points and then downright awful in others. The offense struggled throughout, and without Eric Gray, this team would not be where it's at right now. Jack?
Now, let's move on for the season MVP. Eric Gray has to be the MVP for this season for me. He single-handedly carried the offense all year and never slowed down. He rushed for 11 touchdowns and 1,364 yards this season and declared for the NFL Draft. Aiden, who was your season MVP?
I think just like you said, it has to be Sooners running back Eric Gray, who just declared for the NFL Draft, running for 1,364 yards, 11 touchdowns with 6.4 yards per carry, and including his season of 33 catches and 229 yards through the air, he was only second in the conference to Bijan Robinson and fourth in rushing touchdowns. The Sooners averaged a Big 12 high 216.6 yards, and it's thanks to Gray, who averaged 113.67 of those. Ben, who's your MVP?
Now, I don't want to discount everything that Eric Gray did. He was probably the best player the Sooners had in their offense. But in terms of value, Dillon Gabriel was the MVP of this team. He's the Big 12 Newcomer of the Year. He's the only solid QB on the roster. And don't take my word for it. The coaching staff did not trust any other quarterback on this roster to throw the ball down the field. Braden Willis was getting the most snaps behind Dillon Gabriel. So in terms of value, with no one behind Dillon Gabriel to really be suitable for this offense, and with Javonte Barnes and Marcus Major behind Eric Gray, Dillon Gabriel is just the most valuable player on this team.
Ben, I'm really not sure what team you were watching this season. Eric Gray was the only consistent candidate on either side of the ball. Without him, this team would not be playing in a bowl game in a few weeks. Jack?
Well, there's no denying that it was not all sunshine in Soonerland and Brent Venables' first season as head coach. With a 6-6 record, a lot of Sooner fans were disappointed, and rightfully so, because there were a lot of expectations coming into this season. But with any big change, there has to be some grace period given, as this is his first season as head coach. Aiden, how did Venables' coaching seem to you?
Well, considering Lincoln Riley left this team with mere scraps, a season like this should have been expected. Going 6-6, it could have been much worse. But he's done really well in recruiting, guiding the Sooners to the 7th-ranked class so far with 2 5-stars and 11 4-stars. Venables has done well in the transfer portal, bringing in former UCF quarterback Dillon Gabriel, who had almost 3,000 passing yards, along with 24 touchdowns. Former Wyoming corner C.J. Colden finished with 39 tackles and 4 picks, and McCade Matire finished as a consistent starter on the offensive line. So it'll be important what he can do this offseason through the portal and through recruiting. Ben?
I'm guilty of having very big expectations for this season, but now that I look back, it might have not. It's just not fair, because Brent Venables was left with scraps. He was left with a very bad situation. So it's too soon for fans to be arguing over whether or not this was a good hire. If the same issues are in Norman at this time next year, we can have this discussion. But so much went wrong in the last 12 months. Lincoln Riley and his unprecedented departure to USC, all the drama with Cale Gundy before the season started, and injuries. Dillon Gabriel missed a game and we got shut out by Texas. It was just an absolutely brutal situation. And the fact that they did achieve bowl eligibility, I think the outcome was very good.
And it was actually 1 year ago today that Brent Venables arrived in Norman. The only way to describe the hype since then is insane. And like Ben mentioned earlier, the loss of Lincoln Riley was truly felt this season. Brent Venables was given an awful situation and had to make the best of it. Given a few more seasons, I think Venables will be able to turn it around and get back to the Oklahoma standard.
Well, after Caleb Williams departing, there was a big question mark surrounding QB this season. Dillon Gabriel struggled at times with accuracy, but with more incoming targets and trust in the O-line, he will be able to improve on that if he stays at Oklahoma. Aiden?
Look, Gabriel put up solid numbers, but he didn't quite perform the way that you would expect an Oklahoma quarterback to perform. His 2,925 yards, 24 touchdowns, 6 picks, and 63% completion percentage were really good. But recent quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, even Caleb Williams seem to be the standard that Gabriel did not quite live up to. However, his importance was made clear in his absence against Texas, where we got shut out, losing 49-0, like Ben mentioned earlier. Ben, what are your thoughts on Dillon Gabriel's season?
I think the OU standard of great quarterbacks, I think, has been more detrimental to Dillon Gabriel in his one season so far in Norman than anything else. We can't compare every single quarterback that comes through these doors to Baker Mayfield, to Kyler Murray, to Jalen Hurts. Dillon Gabriel was solid. He wasn't great, but he was solid. And considering that Jeff Lebby was going to be the offensive coordinator that Brent Venables brought with him for year one, Dillon Gabriel was the perfect quarterback to run this offense in year one of this new era of Oklahoma football. There was no one else that would have known this offense as good as Dillon Gabriel.
Yeah, Dillon Gabriel is the only other real option for season MVP. We saw how he performed we saw how the team formed without him against Texas. The fact of the matter is that without Dillon Gabriel, this team would not and could not function properly. While not great, Gabriel still led the Big 12 in yards per game at 265.9 yards, and he also won Big 12 Newcomer of the Year. Like Aiden said, OU fans have grown used to Heisman-quality quarterbacks. Dillon Gabriel isn't that guy, and that's okay.
Now taking a break from the offense, let's look at the defensive side of the ball. The defense played well, all things considered. The offensive struggles led to the defense being on the field more and not being able to take a breath. Danny Stutzman and David Agwebu both had standout years and were the anchors on defense. Aiden, how did the defense perform in your eyes?
Look, for me, it was a bit of a surprise with Venables being a defensive-minded coach coming in from Clemson. But the defense did seem to have a few games that kept us in it, but they let us down in a few games. They did well against Iowa State, West Virginia, and Oklahoma State, but struggled against K-State, TCU, Texas, and Texas Tech. Allowing almost 30 points a game is unacceptable, along with allowing 450 yards per game. However, they did impress by leading all the Power 5 schools in tackles for loss with 99, and their 16 interceptions were a huge improvement from last season.
Unfortunately, aside from a few big performers like Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman, this unit was very underwhelming. This Venables defense that's known for swarming to the football and being physical and being punishing and relentless, it's in there somewhere. There is a good defense in there somewhere. I saw glimpses of greatness in this defense, but this is a defense that was put together that is not optimal for running what Brent Venables likes to do on defense. It's an incomplete picture right now, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do in year two.
Yeah, this defense is perhaps the most frustrating part of this Oklahoma team. In some cases, they look like the elite defense Brent Venables is known for. In others, they look like the abysmal defenses we'd seen in the Lincoln Riley area. In any case, I think the defense will improve greatly throughout the offseason and be truly dominant next season.
So we talked about a little bit how the season went so far. But let's look a little bit ahead. They're playing the 13th ranked Florida State Seminoles in the Cheez-It Bowl in Orlando. It will be the last time the Sooners play this season, and they have a chance to go out on a high note. Aiden, how do you see this game playing out?
I mean, a win would be a positive way to wrap up such a negative season. Playing guys who will be here next year to get a better feel for the next season in the Venables era will be huge. This is our 24th straight bowl game, which is the longest streak now in school history. And if you remember, the last time we played the Seminoles in a postseason was the national championship win 13-2. So I'm not predicting similar success to that because I do think we will lose this game 31-27 in the Sunshine State. What about you, Ben?
Well, missing both starting tackles against Florida State's pass rush is going to be a massive problem. Only 11 programs average more sacks per game than Florida State. And Eric Gray, Wanye Morris, Anton Harrison, and Jalen Redmond all will not be playing. Jared Verse has said he does plan to play. And this is big for the Seminoles, too. Mike Norvell has the Seminoles bowl eligible for the first time in his tenure there. He might have saved his job this season, actually. And just with all these opt-outs for Oklahoma, it is going to be a tough ask to win this. But you know what? The Sooners haven't finished below 500 since 1998, and that's not starting this year.
So I'm not really sure how a 6-6 team is playing the 13th ranked team in the country. Regardless, here we are. The Sooners are going to have to play the best they've played all season if they want to stand a chance against the Seminoles. This is a team that's battled adversity all season long, and I'm confident they'll come out with a win against FSU.
Well, thank you so much for tuning into Game Day U one last time for this college football season. For myself, Aiden Tyler, Ben Dacu, and Michael Buchanan, have a fun and safe bowl season.